All right, welcome back. In this short video, I would like us to explore the differences between Chapter 6, and Chapter 6 again is on consumer marketing, and then Chapter 7 is business marketing. In Chapter 6, we took a look at the steps that consumers will typically go through before they make a purchase decision. And then we also explored what influences people to make various purchase decisions, how family, culture, thought leaders, trends, and things such as that can all influence us to make the choices in what we buy. And I think you would agree with that the better that we understand those processes and those influences, the better job we can do as marketers to put our product in the best light, the best place, so that will eventually be purchased over the competition. So understanding consumer behavior is really important. So Chapter 7 deals with a different kind of market, and that's the business market. And business markets are for example, when Boeing sells airplanes to, let's say it's United Airlines. Okay, that's a business to business transaction. The same would hold true as another example when Fran's Bread sells sells hamburger buns in large quantities to McDonald's throughout the state of Oregon and Washington. That's a business to business transaction. And the key difference between determining what's a consumer market and a business market is when we look at intended use, this concept of intended use. And that simply means if the product is intended for personal consumption, such as you buy Fruit Loops at the grocery store and you plan to use that, that is a consumer product, consumer market. And if taking the Fruit Loops example a bit further, if the Fred Meyer stores agree to buy 3 truckloads of Fruit Loops cereal from the Kellogg's company, and they plan to resell that, that is a business market, because in relation to intended use, Fred Meyer does not plan to personally consume that product. They're going to resell it to other people. So in that case, it's a business market. When Fran's sells bread to McDonald's, McDonald's is not planning to consume that bread. They're planning to use that bread as a component in their finished product. Therefore, it is a business market. So this concept of an intended use is what we can use to distinguish consumer markets from business markets. And again, why do we do this? Why do we explore this? The thought being, as marketers, we can do a better job of selling our products if we understand what moves the consumer or what moves the business buyer to make a decision. If we understand those influences better, we can make a better, do a better job of marketing to them. Okay, so in this next section, let's take a look at the difference between business markets and consumer markets. And for our example, let's consider Boeing here. And Boeing sells this huge 777 airplane, which can handle about 350 passengers. And for consumer markets, let's look at Kellogg's, and let's look at their Cheerios cereal. Okay, it's always been one of my favorites. And so in terms of the difference between business markets, Boeing, versus consumer markets, Kellogg's Cheerios, one difference can be on the volume purchased. When Kellogg's sells Cheerios, typically, they are selling 1 box to you and I. We might buy 2. When Boeing sells airplanes to United Airlines, they might be selling a fleet of maybe 10 airplanes in one transaction. So the purchase volume tends to be larger in business markets. In terms of the number of customers in business markets, there tend to be fewer potential customers. For example, with Boeing, there might be only 300 or 400 airlines around the world, big airlines that could afford, would want to buy a big 777 airplane. The number of potential customers is quite few. Whereas the potential buyers of Kellogg's cereal, the Cheerios, there are many, millions and millions of families of people around the world could potentially be buyers of the cereal. Location of business buyers tends to be quite concentrated in certain areas, whereas consumer markets, consumers are in major cities, mid-sized towns, small towns, little villages, all over the place for cereal. The nature of the buying process in business markets is much more professional. You're dealing with very specific standards of quality, performance, things that can be tested. This whole buying process is much more professional, more scrutinized, whereas buying cereal, it's more personal. It's just kind of what you like, what packaging looks good to you, what tastes good to you. It's more personal in nature. The buying influence, who makes the decision to buy a Boeing 777 or a box of Cheerios? With business products, it tends to be multiple centers of influence, and usually it's a committee. There might be a large committee at United Airlines that will look at the various characteristics of this airplane versus competing airplanes, and the committee will make the decision as to which product to buy. So the buying influence is quite diffused, includes many members. In consumer markets, it's not a committee, it's usually one single person that makes that purchase decision. So that changes the way that we market as well. All right, let's take a look at a few final characteristics on how business markets are different from consumer markets. And one way, and we've kind of talked about this already, is regarding negotiations. For these business transactions that take place with the Boeing airplane, they're much more complex negotiations. Higher dollar volume, higher number of units. There's a buying committee. It's a much more protracted, longer, complex negotiation process. When buying most consumer products, it's quite simple. You go to the store and you buy what looks good to you. Unless you're buying a car, which can be a consumer product, which it might be a little bit more negotiated in that case. Reciprocity is a term also that's common in business markets. And reciprocity simply means that we buy from you, you buy from us. And customers will often take care of their business customers that way, if it makes business sense. So this concept of reciprocity is quite common in selling business products. Really not used as much in consumer products, consumer marketing. So a few ways that this might change our marketing tactics is with and through distribution, with getting our product to the customer. In business markets, it tends to be much more direct. A producer sells directly to the customer. Boeing Airplane Company makes the airplanes, and they sell directly to United Airlines. There aren't intermediaries, wholesalers, or distributors involved in that distribution process. It's very direct. With consumer products, it tends to be more indirect. Kellogg's makes the Cheerios cereal, but they need the help of a variety of distributors and wholesalers and retailers to eventually sell their product to the consumer. So distribution is more indirect in consumer markets usually. And promotion. When we're selling business products, because they're more complex products, they're higher dollar volume, we tend to rely as marketers on personal selling, professional sales executives to help sell our airplanes, to negotiate deals. Whereas in selling most consumer products, because the audience is so large, it's so dispersed, we tend to rely less on personal selling, but more on advertising, mass mediums, TV, radio, newspapers, other social media, to get the word out about our product. Less emphasis on personal selling. Okay, so I hope this gives you somewhat of an idea of the differences between business markets and consumer markets. And the more that we understand these differences, the better job we can do as marketers in preparing our offerings to those customers in those two different markets.